Our talk today is with Teddy Kinyanjui, the co-founder of Seedballs Kenya, an innovative partnership that safely and economically replants indigenous trees and grass seeds in Kenya and East Africa. Seed balls are an innovative way to effectively distribute indigenous trees in large quantities throughout Kenya. A seed ball is a tree or grass seed coated in a protective charcoal coating, keeping the seed safe until it's time to germinate. Their process involves 3 steps. 1. Collecting discarded cooking charcoal waste, thereby cleaning the environment. 2. Cleaning the charcoal dust while adding a binder material. And 3. Creating seed balls to complete the tree to fuel to tree cycle. Thank you, Teddy, for being here today, and welcome. I would like to ask you, what is a seed ball and why is it important?
A seed ball it's a very simple thing. It's as it says, it's a seed inside of a ball of what we use as charcoal dust for the coating on the outside. And this was based out of a sort of lifetime, I'd say, really, of doing dryland forestry with my late dad and within our company, because we realized on one side, having an efficient stove is only part of the solution. You know, if your car uses less fuel, you'll drive further. Suddenly you have cheaper, more efficiency. So there can be that rebound energy effect. And not only that, with population growth, urbanization, we realize that as stove makers, it's beyond even just responsible, but also in our own business interests to make sure that 20, 30 years down the line, people are still barbecuing with charcoal if that's what they want to do. So growing trees is a big part of that. So we'd spent many years doing tree planting experiments in different parts of the country because there wasn't very much information on just the simple question of how do you grow a bag of charcoal? How long does it take? How much does it cost? Because typically most forestry practices in Kenya are plantation, traditional straight lines, pine trees, fir trees in the highland. Most of the charcoal is indigenous acacia trees from the drylands. Those agronomics had not really been done. So we started doing that in the early 2000s. We'd get some planting contracts, people would hear about me, my dad, oh, these guys like planting trees, we should do some at our farm. And the seed ball concept came about after doing many years of traditional tree planting with the plastic bag sapling, digging a hole, watering it. And that's fine. We support that. I love it and do it all the time. There are many species you'll never do as a seed ball. But when you're doing 1 or 2 trees that way, it's much easier than if you do 10,000 and digging 10,000 holes, suddenly 10,000 plastic bags. If the rains don't come, you're watering 10,000 plants. If the rains do come, you can't get to the site because all the roads are muddy. So there are all these logistical challenges with the traditional tree planting, especially on scale. And we were at one of these sites near a highway just near Nairobi. And I was on one side of the fence, struggling with all this stuff. The pickup was stuck in the mud, what have you. And as I looked over, there's the guys from the highway authority who are clearing all the grass. And also noticed they're cutting down the same little small seedlings of the same species of acacia tree that we were paying someone, 50 shillings to plant 2 meters away. So I started thinking, wait a minute, this thing's growing like a weed on the side of the road. What on earth am I doing? Doing all this plastic and shovels and what have you. And I can sort of remember looking up and starting to think, well, where did all the trees in all of Kenya come from to begin with? Because it wasn't like 200 years ago we were planting saplings, right? It's a lucky seed in the right place at the right time, right conditions. So we got really excited about that. Oh, this is fantastic. So I went to the Forest Service, bought a whole bunch of different indigenous seeds for that region, and threw them all out on this little demo farm that we manage there. And the rains failed. And of course, indigenous tree seeds are food for many, many types of birds, guinea fowls, squirrels, mice, you name it. Lots of stuff eats tree seeds. And so, of course, all those seeds got eaten. So that led me sort of back to the drawing board and realized, 2 options. You either seed so heavily that you fill everything up and they can't eat them all, but that's impractical and expensive, or find something that you could coat the seeds with that for us, our parameters were non-toxic, readily available, and cheap to be able to do en masse. And so once we'd had this discussion with Elson from Tam Feeds, and Chardust, it really made so much sense that if you could use the waste of, because some of these charcoal piles that we clean up around different markets in the city, the really old ones, we've actually found coins from like the 1920s in the bottom of them. And when you go through the charcoal, it's sort of urban archaeology. You see the first plastic bags, you start seeing the scratch cards for phones from the 2000s, COVID masks. There's a little layer now of those. And it's quite interesting thinking that some of that charcoal dust that, you on your safari, you might throw that little seed out the window, that might be right where the thing's, parent tree came from about 50 years ago. So that sort of circular economy side of it was perfect from that aspect. And then also, nothing eats charcoal, doesn't have any nutrient, doesn't taste like anything. And so most things would walk past it and not know there's a seed inside of the seed ball.
It's a brilliant idea. It's so simple. That's what's amazing about it. It's so simple. And it's
Well,
right
it's really just copying nature. We found at the end of after struggling against nature with plastic bag seedlings, realized just go with the flow.